There are thousands and thousands of brands of tequila out there, and every single day it seems like a new one is hitting the market. But in this video, we're going to be covering some of my favorite hidden gem tequilas that no one is talking about yet. Right, let's hop right into it. So the first tequila we're going to talk about is Tequila Kasen. And hold on, before you get heated in the comments, I know you're going to say, Kasen is not a hidden gem, everyone knows about it. I know that, but I only recently got a bottle, and I need an excuse for two reasons. One, I want to talk about this tequila more in depth, and number two, because this is going to lead perfectly into the next tequila we're going to talk about. Tequila Kasen, for those of you who do not know, is a tequila that comes from NOM 1123, which is also the distillery called Tequila Kasen, and this is like their flagship brand. And this brand and the distillery have roots all the way back to 1904. This is their regular Blanco. They do make a Tahona crushed Blanco, which a lot of people are really excited about, and personally I also love, but this one is a little bit more budget friendly and it's still absolutely incredible. I believe this bottle only costs me about like $35 to $40, so not too expensive. Like I said, they also make a lot of other expressions. They have their regular Blanco, they have a regular Reposado and a regular Añejo, and they also have some special releases and really high-end sought after bottles that a lot of different collectors are after. But this baseline entry for them I think is still incredible if you can get your hands on it. All right, let's crack this one open and give it a little sip. So on the nose, I get a lot of that cooked agave aroma, as well as a lot of citrus, with some hints of like grassy vegetalness and a little bit of like pepper. Wow. That's amazing. So whereas the pepper aroma comes through very slightly, it does come through way more on the flavor. Right at the back end, you kind of get that nice quenching kind of thing in your mouth, when it like really lends itself to those peppery notes. The roasted agave is right there in central, and there is a lot of great citrus. It's really bright and delightful, and a really incredible tequila from an incredible distillery. And all right, well, we talked a lot about Kasen, but really the reason why we talked about them is so that we can talk about Laginas Delva next. Laginas Delva is another brand that is produced at NOM 1123. But what makes Laginas Delva so special is their focus on terroir. As you can see here on the front, they have a vintage number, and what their plan is that every single year they're going to harvest agave from one single ranch to showcase the terroir of that ranch and that plot of land, to highlight the role that terroir plays in agave spirit. And then they're going to be releasing vintages based on each single year. What I have here is the 2022, which is El Chiqueño. And you might be asking yourself, what is a vintage? A vintage is essentially a date of the year that that product was produced. This is super common in wine. For example, with some wine that I have here at the restaurant, we have this Colonia Las Liebres. It's an Argentinian Bonarda. You can see right there front and center, the vintage is 2020. And then I also have a Chilean Merlot, which says the vintage is 2021. When it comes to grapes, the vintage is super important because you can deal with things such as drought, or maybe you didn't get enough rain that year, or maybe there was a fire nearby, and all of that will impact the flavor of the grapes, which will then impact the final flavor of the wine in the bottle. And so a grape grows about once a year, so you can harvest every single year and you can make wine every single year. Tequila is super different because agave takes 6 to 8 years to reach full maturity. So it spends about 6 to 8 times longer in the ground, and so that will play a part on the final product. And while we're talking about it, I'm an absolute sucker for great branding, and I think that their branding is absolutely outstanding. I love the shape of the bottle. I love the design of all of the labels. It makes it really stand out. I love that they put the vintage front and center right there on the neck, and I absolutely adore what they are doing. All right, let's give this a little sip. So right on the nose, I get that roasted agave front and center, but then I get a really bright citrus aroma, a little bit more reminiscent like grapefruit than like lemon. It also smells a little minerally and a little vegetal as well. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So this one, I get a lot of minerality, a lot of an earthy vegetalness. The agave's front and center. It really stands up well. It gives you that nice bite, and it makes you just want to keep sipping it. It is thoroughly enjoyable, and I do think that the terroir really comes through. You get that earthy vegetal flavor that I love. And I should have mentioned this before, this is 46% ABV, and so you do get that higher ABV, but it doesn't turn me off from sipping this. I think it's absolutely incredible. So good, and I really hope they keep producing incredible vintages year after year. All right, well, you could probably argue that those brands were a little bit more common and they're not exactly hidden gems, but let's talk about El Ateo. El Ateo is a brand of tequila from NOM 1635, and it is a single brand NOM, meaning this is the only thing produced at that distillery. They have their Blanco, their Reposado, and they also make an Añejo. And another interesting thing about their farm is that their farm dates back to the 20th century, and it's one of the most well-preserved farms in the region from, I believe, the Spanish colonial era. And so let's talk about first impressions from a branding standpoint. So I do like that between the Blanco to the Reposado, they have a different, logo at the front. One of the things I complained about when I first talked about the Blanco is how easily the top ripped off. It was like the second I got the bottle. But right there on the bottle cap, I think it's beautiful. It's nice and heavy, so it feels very a little premium, which is nice. And I think it's a beautiful bottle. So let's first sip the Blanco and then we'll sip the Reposado, all right? So first, the Blanco. Ooh. And so this is made with deep well water, and it is Tahona crushed. So they are making it in the traditional way. And that's all well and good, Louis, but what are the aromas like? What are the flavors like? All right, let's get to it. So right on the nose, I get that roasted agave, obviously, but it's incredibly vegetal and almost a little briny. It reminds me almost like of olives or maybe like almost like peppers, but not like a black pepper, more like a bell pepper. It's like kind of bright and vegetal as well. Ooh, very smooth. The flavor kind of is more subtle. It starts off very subtle, but then it kind of gets you on the back end. Great roasted agave flavor, vegetal, herbal, and like almost peppery. It's really tasty and it's nice, easy sipper, and it definitely feels like you could just sip this and enjoy it on its own, which I think you can and you should. It's really good. All right, so that was the Blanco. What about the Reposado? All right. And so let's take a look at the color. It's nice and light, nothing too crazy. I believe it was only aged for about 5 months in white oak and also American oak that used to house bourbon as well. On the nose, I still get that nice minerality. I still get the roasted agave, but now it's accompanied with some nice spice notes of like cinnamon and maybe like butterscotch. Oh, wow. Oh yeah, that's a really beautiful continuation from the Blanco. And it really just does have that nice added layer of like a little bit of like cinnamon, some vanilla, butterscotch, but those flavors from the Blanco are still very much present. I think that's a great Reposado, really tasty, and I love what they are doing. So before we get to the last tequila brand that we're gonna talk about today, I wanna go through a couple of honorable mentions really quickly. So number one is Tequila Corrido. Tequila Corrido is a brand of tequila made at NOM 1499. And what is fascinating to me about them, that their master distiller is Ana Maria Romero Mena. She is the same person responsible for one of my favorite brands on the market at the moment, Mi Genta. I think that Tequila Corrido is a great brand as well, not super expensive, and one that I think more people should be drinking. And the other honorable mention is Siembra Azul. Siembra Azul is a tequila being produced at NOM 1414, and I've been very pleasantly surprised and happy with a lot of the products coming out of NOM 1414. I think it is another incredible example as well. You should definitely check it out. So the last video that I made on hidden gem tequilas, we talked about Volans, and that was a tequila from the same distillery that produces G4. And today, we're going to talk about Tequila Primo, which is another brand that is made at El Pandillo, the same distillery that produces Volans and G4. Primo is a fascinating tequila brand because they are actually part of the same family, the Camarena family, who was responsible for El Pandillo and G4. Pedro Camarena, who is the gentleman who founded Primo, is the cousin or the primo of Felipe Camarena, who is the master distiller of G4 and El Pandillo. And their family has been producing tequila for over 5 generations. And Primo is an incredible brand that just released relatively recently. And it is one of only 4 brands produced at El Pandillo. And I've spoken so much about how much I love the work that they're doing at El Pandillo. G4 and Volans are 2 of my favorite brands. And Primo is truthfully not that far behind. I think that the branding is nice, clean, classy. I love the big bottle toppers. I think they look really nice. And I think it does stand out in terms from a visual standpoint from the other brands from El Pandillo. But all right, that's really cool, Louis, but what does it taste like? That's the important part, right? Well, let's get to it. So first off, let's taste the Blanco. And oh, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, this one is 43% ABV, and I believe it retails for about like $60 to $70. So not the most expensive tequila out there, also not the most budget friendly, but still, I think it sits in a good area in terms of pricing. So on the nose, I get a lot of that roasted agave, some nice citrus. That black pepper mixed with the minerality that is very common from the other brands at El Pandillo is also present here. That's so good. It's like almost savory. Like you get that roasted agave, you get that minerality, and it just kind of makes you want to keep sipping more. It makes you want to like have something nice and salty to eat with this. Like imagine having some tortilla chips with a little bit of salsa and sipping this in between each bite. I think it would just complement it perfectly. And next up, let's talk about their Reposado. Now, disclaimer, I actually don't believe that they're going to be producing a Reposado on the regular basis. And this was a single barrel pick that was sent to me by Jay Bear. First of all, thank you very much, my friend. This is incredible, and I'm really happy that you shared it with me. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to find this, but let's talk about it, because I think it's important anyway. This one was aged in both French and American oak for about 2 months. I'm really excited to try this again. It's been a couple of weeks, so let's pour some out. On the nose, you get that minerality, that pepperiness, but you do get some of those barrel notes. Oh, that's heavenly. The barrel kind of just cuts a little bit of the minerality, but not in a bad way. It just makes it a little bit more smooth, if you will. I usually hate using that word when describing tequila, but in this instance, it's apt. I think it makes sense. It's a really enjoyable sipper. Those minerally notes are still there. The pepperiness is still there. The vegetalness is still there, but super enjoyable and really tasty. No matter which of these 4 tequilas that you choose to go with, I think you'll be in great hands. And I hope that this video really opened your eyes as to some of the other incredible brands of tequila out there. But if you can't get enough of me talking about tequila, I have this whole other video right here next where I tasted through 30 different brands of tequila. Go watch it if you haven't already done so.